And alright, guys, what's happening out there? Hope you're all good. Welcome along to another episode of 420 News. And I'm your host, Martin Condon, guys. And 420 News is brought to you by Martin's World. Guys, hope you're all doing good out there. And if you don't already know, you can support the show by signing up to the patreon.com/Martin's World. And you can also make donations in the form of bitcoins through a link there on martinsworld.ie. And again, just to remind you guys, all the funds generated there will be used to set up and run a cannabis activist hub here in Cork City, so we can better organise ourselves and socialise and all that stuff as well, so that cannabis can be legalised sooner rather than later in Ireland. So guys, I have a couple of bits of news to bring to you today. A lot of it will be focused around the UN and the vote that happened there. But before I get into that, I've a bit of an important announcement to make because a guest of the show in the past, John O'Regan, he was raided yesterday by the Gardaí. So if you don't know, John O'Regan was a guest here on the podcast before, and he gave a good interview too. And I met him above in court the day he was in court because this isn't the first time he's been raided. He's been raided a couple of times in the past by the Gardaí, and all the man is guilty of is his own personal possession of cannabis. And he was only in court there, was it, February or March, somewhere along the lines any earlier in the year. And or no, sorry, it was September. Jeez, it wasn't even that far back. It was September that he was actually up in court. Not long after I was in court myself, and it was pretty much kind of dismissed. He got a bit of a fine, about I think it was a €700 fine or something. John will know on you, but it was a couple of €100 fine. That was it, and he was caught with a couple of plants then as well, and some of his own cannabis herb. Yesterday, the guards, nine of them, or Gardaí arrived at 9 and just left an hour ago. So that was put up there about 11:30 last night. And they found 4 plants and a jar. So I'd imagine the jar was containing his own cannabis herb. So I just want to send a shout out there to John that, John, I think anyway, and I'm sorry you have to go through that. And, that you can more than welcome to come back onto the podcast to share your story with people again, because this is just discrimination. What's going on? You should not be regarded a criminal. The Gardaí should not be targeting you. The next report that I'm going to get onto, which is the recommendations that were made by the World Health Organization. Well, the first one of those to remove cannabis and cannabis resin from Schedule 4, leaving it still in Schedule 1, but at least it's less restricted there. So that basically means that the UN are now recognizing the medicinal value of cannabis. And here we have people being criminalized for growing what is a medicinal plant, a plant that gives medicinal benefits to people who consume it, who need it. Not everybody is going to get medicinal benefits from it, but some people do, and they enjoy it, and they shouldn't be denied it, and they shouldn't be discriminated against either for it. So I hope John, and I wish him the best of luck there, but I hope he doesn't get too stressed out by this, because I know the last time it did kind of knock him back a bit. It's not something that anybody wants to be going through. So, and as I was saying, guys, the UN anyway, they made their vote happen today, and they voted on the recommendations that were put before them by the World Health Organization. And the first of those recommendations was to remove cannabis from Schedule 4, to delete it, cannabis and cannabis resins from Schedule 4 of the 1961 Convention. And that was passed. So that was passed with a majority vote of 27 for and 25 against, with one country abstaining from the vote. So that now means that cannabis is going, and cannabis resin will be removed from Schedule 4, which basically means that in Schedule 4, so at Schedule 4, it means that there's a very high potential for abuse and no therapeutic uses. At least at Schedule 1, while it's still heavily restricted, it's acknowledging the fact that there are substantial medical uses, there are therapeutic uses for cannabis and cannabis resins and preparations thereof. As expected then, guys, that's the only good news that to come from that vote. There was 6 recommendations made, and the other 5 were basically shot down. 2 of them tied, interestingly, but they were then rejected without a vote. So those 2 were recommendation 5.3 and 5.6. and they were tied, and they were thrown out because recommendation 5.2 was rejected. So recommendation 5.2 was to move THC from the 1971 convention to the 1961 treaty, which would have reduced the control there around THC somewhat. But again, it's just not reflective of the current knowledge that's out there. There's no justification for keeping THC in the Schedule 1 substances of this Act. And then recommendation 5.6 there, that was about placing THC pharmaceutical preparations in Schedule 3 of the treaty, which would have been a good move there, would have allowed for better prescribing of these medicines by doctors, and opening up the doorway there for better research to be carried out. But that was rejected as well, that was rejected with 24 votes in favour and 27 against. But according to the World Health Organization explanation of the recommendation, it is simply meant to eliminate a duplicity and does not seek to decrease the level of control of any cannabis-related substances or to narrow the scope of control. So the World Health Organization were saying, look, we're just wanting to open up the doorway for research and for medical practitioners, but we're not saying cannabis is legalised. They're not saying that, and they were trying to allay those worries, but obviously they weren't very successful at all. And recommendation then 5.4, which was a proposal to delete extracts and tinctures from the 1961 treaty, that was rejected 24 to 27 also. Which, extracts and tinctures, why they wanted to have that deleted from the treaty, because it was just too a broad a statement. Extracts and tinctures of cannabis, cannabis and cannabis resin is sufficient to cover it. There was no need for them to be including extracts and tinctures. It's just they were really out to make sure nobody can access cannabis when they were thinking up all of these laws and recommendations before in the past. And recommendation 5.5 then, which was the most interesting one of them. I thought it was the most likely one to pass, to be honest, which was around adding a footnote to say that CBD preparations with traces of THC should be removed from the controlled substances list, because it isn't a danger to the public based on the current knowledge out there. And they rejected that. They wouldn't accept that at all, which is a pity, a real pity. And there was a good write-up there that I came across by another fellow activist who I hope to have a conversation with in the coming days. And his name is Kenzie Ruboulet Zamouli, and I hope I pronounced that right there. But he's based in Barcelona, and he's a French-Algerian interdisciplinary researcher, an advocate for sustainable drug policies, a founding member of a think tank, FAAT, and the NGOs Normal France, IMCPC, and CATNPUD, focused on action research as a catalyzer for legal and social changes. Kenzie is particularly involved in studying alternative pathways for cannabis policy reforms, linking international law with local grassroots initiatives, and he anchors his work on the ethics, human rights aspects, fair trade components, and criteria of sustainability of legally regulated use, production, and marketing of controlled plants, products, and substances. And he starts off this article here that I'm about to read out for you with a quote from Mark Twain. And I don't know if you know who Mark Twain is, but this is a quote here from him. He says, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. And that is something that will ring close to home for all the activists out there who've been trying to raise awareness around the need to end the prohibition of cannabis. It's hard to convince the people who believe that cannabis is such a dangerous drug that you've been hoodwinked. People, it's not as bad as what they've said to be. It's no angel, it's not something that's it's not completely safe. It shouldn't be given to the kids for one, unless they suffer from a condition. So that's the kind of that's the. Sorry, lost my train of thought there because I was just reading this article there as well. So I'm going to transition you over here. I already did. Apologies. So today in the United Nations voted on a taboo topic on the ballot modest updates on international medical cannabis laws proposed by the World Health Organization. Based on thorough 2-year assessment by an independent scientific committee, the World Health Organization's recommendations were unprecedented since the Single Convention on Narcotics Drugs passed in 1961. One of the World Health Organization's recommendations, and this was the one I was just talking about, focused on the CBD medicinal products and pharmaceuticals such as Epidiolex, Cannapple, and other similar almost pure CBD medications. But CBD per se is not listed in the schedules of the drug conventions, but THC is. And because CBD medications are found to contain up to 0.2% of residual THC when derived from the cannabis plant, some countries consider that they should be regulated as if listed in the schedules. The recommendations of the World Health Organization only propose that CBD medications with trace amounts less than 0.2% of THC be exempt from drug control, just like pure CBD already is. The World Health Organization did not address so-called hemp CBD products used for non-medicinal purposes in recommendations, only medicinal CBD products like Epidiolex. Nevertheless, governments who reject the input of science, with Russia, Nigeria, China and Cuba at the forefront, have hijacked the discussion and created a smokescreen, bringing non-medicinal hemp CBD into the discussion. Even though entirely off topic, these countries propagated the belief that CBD recommendation is a referendum on CBD, leveraging geopolitics against science. Earlier in 2020, the USA delegate reckoned that the CBD discussion had been turned into a primary area of misunderstanding or perhaps confusion. And the representatives of Colombia criticised those countries that referred of commercial products in general. He left it clear, we are talking about medications after all. We are not talking about recreational use products. We're not talking about food products or food stuff, or products that are freely available. Rather, we strictly abide by the terms used within the drug control conventions, and we refer to products for medicinal and scientific purposes. Today, the CBD recommendation has been rejected. However, the outcome of the vote will have no impact on the legal status of CBD, which will remain exactly the same as it was in the previous years. Today's vote will in no way impact or affect the hemp and non-medicinal CBD industries. However, the misunderstandings and false narrative created could have a devastating symbolic impact on the hemp sector. Stakeholders must understand that that before the vote, industrial/non-industrial hemp CBD was not scheduled, not under drug control, and now after the vote, industrial non-medical CBD remains not scheduled and remains outside international control. And I just thought that was a good article to share with you guys there, because it kind of shows there some of the countries were spreading some of this more propaganda basically within the UN and fear-mongering basically. I really thought that the CBD footnote would have been added to allow better access to CBD products there for patients, and to allow farmers as well to take part in what is going to be a very big industry. A lot of people are very interested in CBD and CBD type products, and these laws are just getting in the way of innovation, and people are still being criminalized then because of it. You have people who can't afford these CBD products currently, who might be forced to grow their own CBD plants because they can't afford the oils that are out there. You know, you could grow plants and make your own oils for a fraction of the cost of what you are currently paying for them. And the prices you're currently paying is because of this prohibition that exists around cannabis. If this prohibition didn't exist around cannabis, you would be getting CBD oils for pennies. It'd be cheap, you know. You can buy other oils out there for rather cheap prices. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to buy these oils, you know. You've thyme oil, oregano oil, all of these essential oils from plants that are, you know, you get a small bottle of them, and they might be, depending on the quality of the oil, ranging from 10 to 50 euro for about 10 mils of it. 10 mils of cannabis oil currently is a ridiculous price. It's nowhere in the range of 10 to 50 euro, you know. So that's why we need to end this prohibition. It's just so discriminatory towards so many people, and so many people are suffering then because of it. And it's wrong that these people in power are allowed just basically spread propaganda and lies, and ignore the science and the facts. So, in other news, guys, and there is another vote that's going to be happening quite soon in the US, and it's going to be on the MORE Act. And the MORE Act seeks to it's looking to legalise or decriminalise at least cannabis at a federal level in America. And I've been told by people over there that this will pass the House level, but it's going to not pass the Senate level, so that it's just going to stall and it's not going to go anywhere. But that's just somebody's opinion. I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. But some cannabis activists are urging the Congress to vote no on the MORE Act. And it's interesting why they're doing this. It's not because they want to keep cannabis illegal so that they can make a lot of money selling it to people illegally. No, this is patients. These are patients who are urging Congress to vote no, and why they're doing so is because there's going to be more taxes slapped on cannabis and cannabis products because of this act. And the cannabis activists are saying that this is unfair, that they're already paying enough taxes. Their state taxes are ridiculous there for cannabis, and all it's going to do then is it's going to send patients back to the black market because they're not going to be able to afford the products. So there was Sean Kiernan, the CEO of Weed for Warriors, a California group that works to ensure access to medicinal cannabis for veterans. While he fully supports the goals of the MORE Act, including the ending of the criminalisation of cannabis and efforts to address the harms caused by the war on drugs, Kiernan believes that the bill will also have serious unintended consequences. Among them, he says, are provisions that would add another layer of taxes on cannabis business. So in a letter to members of Congress this week, Kiernan wrote that the state taxes on cannabis are already so high that many people, particularly disabled veterans and other medicinal cannabis patients with limited incomes, have no access to legal pot and are forced to resort to unregulated sources. So essentially they're going back to the black market because the regulated market is it's too heavily taxed, and they're not able to afford the products there, which is it's an interesting development. He says there then that we have legalised cannabis for the privileged, and we have kept illicit cannabis as the only option for too many, especially disabled veterans seeking an alternative to deadly pharmaceuticals like opioids. And under the MORE Act, cannabis would be removed from the list of drugs regulated by the Controlled Substances Act and added, and a system to expunge convictions for federal cannabis offences would be established. The bill also imposes a tax on cannabis products, which, with the proceeds used to support the individual businesses impacted by the war on drugs. Other provisions including protections for immigrants and eligibility for federal benefit programs, are also included in the measures. So what they're saying is that they're going to put a tax on it in order to redress the people who've been displaced by the war on drugs. There's been a lot of people criminalised because of it. You know, a lot of people finding it hard to get jobs. So there needs to be systems set up to get these people back into society and help, I don't know, in a certain way maybe apologise for the wrong that was done to them by criminalising them. And that is a good measure, but it's not fair that the patients and the consumers are the ones who have to pay for it when they weren't the ones who criminalised the people in the first place. That was the government who done that, and the prohibitionists who done that. So it's kind of unfair that the patients then are being made pay for that wrongdoing, you know. And the very same patients who have been the ones at the forefront of the fight to see cannabis legalised, you know. It's unfair that they're being now made pay for it. So Kiernan, a veteran who saw action on the front lines of the US drug policy in Central America in the 80s and 90s, went on to explain that a vet choosing to substitute cannabis for an addictive daily regimen of pills would need approximately an eighth of an ounce, about 3.5 grams of cannabis, or about 4 joints worth per day. So that's interesting. 4 joints out of 3.5 grams of cannabis. So clearly he's not adding tobacco to his joints. But as he says here, at a licensed dispensary, then an 8 can cost at least $40 once taxes have been tacked on. In some states, it can be much higher. To me here, like, that doesn't sound expensive at all. But then saying that, I'm not a disabled veteran living on a low income. in America. So maybe that is a bit to be paying. And cannabis here, it's ridiculously high. 3.5 grams of cannabis now can be going for 70 to 80 euro, which is about $100 or so. So look how cheap it actually gets on the legal market. And even when I say look how cheap it gets, like that's still not that cheap. They're probably able to get that cheaper now on the black market. You're probably getting an 8 for $20 or so on the black market, most likely. So it's quite interesting there. And it supports what I've been saying all along. If we were to just legalise and regulate cannabis, the money goes out of it and the criminals will disappear from it. Then the only people who will be involved in the industry will be people who are actually passionate about the industry. Obviously, you're going to have a few people there who are passionate about money, but hopefully most of the people there who will be more passionate about the industry, the cannabis, the consumers, and the culture, and all of that. But he says then that as you can easily see, a 100% disabled veteran would have to spend approximately 40% of his entire $3,000 per month disability check to leave the horrors of big pharma addiction, overdose, and suicidal thoughts behind. Kieran notes that the needs of veterans and other medicinal cannabis patients have long been cited as the just cause for legalising cannabis, but with the legalisation models being passed into law, high taxes make regulated, lab-tested cannabis a luxury out of reach for many. You're forcing effectively middle class and working class patients or people who use cannabis on a regular basis for whatever reason to have to shop in the illicit market. Once considered a pie in the sky wish list for progressives, this summer's civil strife and resulting calls for reform of the justice system have made the MORE Act the prime contender of several pending federal criminal or cannabis legalisation bills. So Democratic leaders, including Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, the sponsor of a companion measure in the Senate, supports the bill, which is up for a vote in the House this week. So we'll look there. Hopefully that passes. But hopefully before it passes, they do something to remove these taxes. So the actual rise of taxes imposed by the MORE Act will be between 5 and 8%. So a $40 bag of cannabis will now go to somewhere between like maybe $42 to $44. That's not a whole lot, but if you add that up, if that's a daily thing, like that's a lot. That's an extra $40 every 10 days, or so that adds up over time. And it's unfair that they're basically adding these taxes on to redress the people who've been punished by these laws. And they're using the same people who've been supporting the changing of these laws to pay them. Like it's a bad one, really, to say the least. So that's going to be voted on later in the week. Do I have an exact date there for that? I don't have an exact date there for that, but I will update you as that comes up. I just thought it was an interesting one to share with you, because it's something that I talk about as well. Why we need to organise ourselves as a cannabis community in Ireland is because I believe legalisation is coming here, and it's going to be coming sooner than we think, I believe. And I think we really need to be organising ourselves and having good organisations there representing the views and the voices of the cannabis community. For one thing, if cannabis is to be legalised, I would like to see cannabis legalised where we all have the right to grow our own cannabis at home. And if I grow 10 plants or if I grow 20 plants, I shouldn't be considered a criminal for either of those acts. If the government want to put in place a license for the selling of cannabis, then that's fair enough. But if I want to grow 10 or 20 plants of cannabis and if I want to share that cannabis with my friends, if they call over, well, why shouldn't I be able to? It's discrimination if you don't let me, because if I was to be brewing alcohol or growing tobacco, there is no laws against me sharing that with my friends. There's laws against me selling it, yes, and I think we should have the same laws for cannabis too. But for sharing it, no, I think we should not have to limit how many plants a person can grow and limit their ability then to share cannabis with their friends. Or just to have it there when people call over, instead of offering them tea and biscuits, would you like a tea and a spliff? Yeah, I got some jars of lovely homegrown. Be very nice. All in good time to come anyway, with a bit of luck. So on other news, guys, in America again, we're sticking with. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl are now going to be bringing out an ad that's going to be highlighting the medical benefits of cannabis. So it's going to be about a 30-second ad that's going to be played during the Super Bowl, which is huge, to be honest. And I was only talking about this the other day when with Mike Tyson, actually. Mike Tyson had a sponsor, Weed Maps, sponsor his big fight there the other night. Now, I know it was only an exhibition fight, but nonetheless, it's really putting cannabis out there into the mainstream. First, you have the big Mike Tyson fight with the advertising for cannabis. And now you have the Super Bowl, who are going to be I'm not too sure the extent of the advertisements, but it's stated that it's going to be advertising the medical benefits of smoking cannabis. The article says, but I hope they just stick to the medical benefits of cannabis, because smoking it's only one form of ingestion. It's not the only way. So I hope they don't slip up and go down that way. But I just thought that was a good one for basically for the cannabis industry. It's really putting it out there now into the mainstream, and it's hopefully it's going to be more positive things coming. So the controversial ad has garnered widespread support around the league. Patriots owner Robert Kraft spoke highly of cannabis and the placement of the Super Bowl ad, because he has had first-hand experience partying with with Ricky during the summer. So Ricky's right about cannabis, said Kraft. So Robert Ricky is the Patriots owner, that is. You should have been there the day we picked him up on the side of the road in Idaho, and he got in the car and he lit up a bone for Bellyhick Goodwell. So that's probably another football player. Sorry, guys, I'm not well versed in football. I don't know none of these players at all. The coolest part was right after that we drove for 460 miles without saying a word to each other, lost in your own thoughts and fantasies. That's former NFL players were also on board with the cannabis advertising paradigm shift. I was addicted to plenty of drugs after I became the biggest bust in NFL history, says Ryan Leaf, who now gives motivational speeches. The NFL was a stressful place, and cannabis is exactly the elixir that's needed to calm everybody down and just mellow people out, says Ryan. Another all-time NFL bust, Tony Mandarich, sounded very familiar to Leaf in his praise of cannabis ad. Like Leaf, I busted at as an NFL player after entering the league as the most highly touted college lineman of all time, he said. So I turned to drugs to solve my problems. Many of them made me big, strong and crazy, but cannabis won't. It won't be like that. It's legal in 35 states, so it's bound to be safe. It's bound to make the NFL and its fans enjoy life more than they do now. And the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodis was hesitant then to comment, because the last time he got involved with cannabis, he ended up in the Daytona Beach jail cell. So interesting there. I hope this is just the first of many appearances of cannabis in the mainstream. No, I know I have said in the past that I don't want to see cannabis advertised like we see alcohol and tobacco, but this ad is going to be about the medical benefits of cannabis. So it's not. I don't think it's about advertising a product. It possibly is, actually. It's more than likely is. But I'm hoping that it's an ad maybe coming in from the Marijuana Policy Project, or one of those other organizations, maybe Normal. Maybe one of those guys have chipped in big time and bought an ad just to get a message of education out there to people, because I believe those are the types of advertisements we need around cannabis, and not the buy my CBD oil, or buy my bloody Mike Tyson's weed. Sorry, like I know I'm bitching about the marketing, but only last week I was talking about how I was lured into to really enjoying Mike Tyson's weed just because it was Mike's. So on other news, guys, and we're almost there. We're going to wrap it up there shortly, bring it on back home. So we're going to head on back to Ireland, where we have this lovely fella, and his name is Flynn. And Flynn was busy over the weekend working with the customs in Rosslare, and they found €63,000 worth of cannabis, so about just over 3 kilos of cannabis. So it was said that the illegal drugs were discovered when a UK registered van that had arrived on a ferry from Fishguard, Wales, was stopped and searched. The search was carried out with the assistance of Revenue's mobile X-ray scanner and a detector dog, Flynn, and this led to the discovery of the drugs, which were concealed in a side panel behind the driver's seat. A man in his 30s was arrested at the scene and was detained under Section 2 of the Criminal Justice Act. And they said investigations are ongoing, and Revenue said that these routine operations are part of ongoing work targeting smuggling and shadow economy work. um, poor Flynn. Poor Flynn. That's all I was saying. It was just poor Flynn. I think it's terrible that these dogs are being put to this use. That a human actually had to spend time training this dog how to find cannabis, only to have it burned in just pure destruction, and not bringing any benefits to anybody. It's ridiculous. The poor dog. He should be out there sniffing out cancer or bombs or something like that. Maybe being one of the dogs that help a person with epilepsy. Give a few little barks there, just to indicate to the human that hey, you're about to have a seizure. Sit down, lie down, even. Because dogs are amazing, and I think humans are dickheads for training them for smelling cannabis. But I would love to have one, to be honest. I'd love to take a walk around the city with one of these drug dogs and see where he brings me. It'd be very interesting. But it's interesting how these dogs operate, actually. When the dog is working, he can only work for 30 minutes, and then he gets about another 15-minute break before he goes and does about another 30 minutes work again. And it's interesting as well that these dogs are prone to giving false positives, especially when it's involving sniffing a person, because the dog is very keen, or very in tune with his handler. And if the dog's handler is suspicious of you, the dog will mark you as being a person carrying drugs, even if you've nothing, because the dog is picking up off the senses from his handler. And this has been shown to be the case. Like, these dogs indicate false positives on people at least 50% of the time, if not more. An incredibly unreliable way of finding drugs on people, anyway. Um, I seen them in action at Cream Fields, and I thought it was quite dangerous what the cops were doing to people there. They had the drug dog in the middle of the field, and people were walking through. And some people were finding out on the other side of the gate, oh, there's a drug dog over there. And there was one or two people took all their drugs in the line. They just took like 10 ecstasy tablets or something pure, just stupid. I don't know what would be going through a person's head when they think, oh, I'm just going to take all my drugs now and deal with the consequences later. And I was working on the welfare tent, and we seen some of those people come through, and it's not a pleasant sight to see a person like experiencing those kind of nasty side effects of just taking too much. And it's caused then by the panic, by the presence of these drug dogs. It's just it's a silly way of doing things. It's better that if I don't know, if they had drug testing on site, and the people didn't have to risk then bringing the drugs in themselves, let the dealers do it. And if you buy your drugs on site, you can get them tested on site then as well. I don't know. There's just got to be better ways to do it, because people are going to take drugs, and you use drug dogs, you're scaring people, and especially when they're lining up to get in somewhere, and they might dispose of their drugs in a very silly way. And here is just a little picture of Flynn's bust, and you see the 3 bags of cannabis there, vacuum packed on the table. What a heartbreaker! They're not going to reach their destination. Some heartbroken fella out there now crying. Probably, I don't know, what would you pay for 3 kilos these days? They're saying it's worth 63 grand. I reckon he paid maybe no more than 20 anyway. Would you say no more than 20 for 3 kilos? Would you? About seven each, seven so each. It's less than 6 each, or more than 6 each. I don't know. When I bought kilos before, they were 8,000, but I don't know what they are now. And I never bought 3 at a time, so maybe I would have got a better discount if I did. So in other news, guys, the farmers make the news, because an EU court ruling on CBD, a lifeline for Ireland's hemp industry, and that was a headline there in the agri.ie page, and they say that the Hemp Federation Ireland has welcomed the EU Court of Justice ruling that cannabidiol, CBD, is not a narcotic drug, and it's not. But like as I just said there earlier, the UN have refused to include the provision there that up to 0.2% THC be removed from the controlled list, therefore allowing just better quality products out there to people. But no, unfortunately, they're ignorant, and they didn't go ahead with that. So people are going to suffer now as a result of their ignorance. And it says here that the court recently gave the judgment in a French case against the directors of a Czech Republic company that was responsible for the marketing and distribution of a CBD oil, electronic cigarette, a molecule present in hemp and part of the cannabinoid family. The CBD was produced in the Czech Republic from hemp plants grown lawfully and using the entirety of the plant, the leaves and the flowers included. It was imported into France to be packaged in electronic cigarette cartridges, and criminal proceedings were then initiated against the directors, since under French legislation only the fibre and seeds of hemp may be put to commercial use. And guys, just keep in mind, this is the exact same law that exists in Ireland. Only the fibre and seeds may be used in Ireland. The flowers, the stalk, the flowers and the leaves are not allowed to be used currently in Ireland, because of our laws. And they're similar to France, but the EU courts here have said, no, actually, it's not justified. There's no justification for these laws. So we need to challenge them more, really, because we need to be able to grow this. Like for one, all right, if you want to grow a plant and you don't want people to be getting high, allow them to grow the CBD plants, and allow them to grow the plants that have like up to 0.2, 0.3, even up to 1% THC. But obviously, you just be allowing people to grow cannabis across the board. It's just stupid that we discriminate in these different ways, Oh, you can grow cannabis, but you can only grow up to 1%, and if you grow over 1%, you're a criminal. Well, that's discrimination. We can't allow this stuff to be carrying on, because there's no justification for these laws, for these rules and restrictions, And it goes on to say then that, however, this is contrary to the EU law, which deems that CBD lawfully produced by using the cannabis sativa plant in its entirety and not solely from its fibre and seeds cannot be prohibited from being marketed in another EU member state. Because of this, the court questioned the conformity to the EU law of the French legislation. In the judgment of the court, that finds that the EU law, in particular the provisions of the free movement of goods, precludes national legislation. The court noted the provisions on the free movement of goods within the EU are applicable, since the CBD in this case cannot be regarded as a narcotic drug. So there you go. Like that was the big ruling in that CBD is not a narcotic drug, but the UN sadly have kept it somewhat it's somewhat in a grey area because of the presence of THC. A decision to prohibit the marketing of CBD can be adopted only if that risk appears sufficiently established, which it wasn't. Hemp Federation Ireland has welcomed the ruling, saying the judgment is a lifeline. Chris Allen, Executive Director of Hemp Federation Ireland, said that it is very important that the government is now seen to support the Irish industry. The ruling of the court is important to the Irish hemp industry, but it is also important for the Ireland's entire SME, small to medium enterprises, and the farming sectors, as well as for Irish democracy. The court has done its part, and now others must do ours. Or theirs. And ours, as in us, the cannabis community. Guys, we need to get up and stand up for a right to be able to grow this bloody plant. It's ridiculous. You go down to the shop there and you're paying 50 odd euro for a bottle of CBD oil, and there's no need for it. It can be much cheaper if we didn't have all these bloody restrictions in place and all these hoops for farmers to jump through. It's just sad that we allow them to discriminate against us like this, and to discriminate against this plant. It's just sad. So we really do need to make a stand, and a big one now. Stephen Donnelly, Helen McEntee, and Frank Feehan. These are the guys in power that we should be contacting. Helen McEntee, if you don't know, she's our Justice Minister. So she's the woman that we need to be calling to end the prohibition of cannabis, along with Frank Feehan, who's in charge of the National Drug Strategy. And then we have Stephen Donnelly, who's our Health Minister. So we need to be calling on the three of these people to be sitting down and having a proper rational discussion to end cannabis prohibition once and for all, and to stop discriminating against our community and treating us like criminals when we're not. The real criminals are really the ones who keep this prohibition in place. You know, the real criminals are the ones who prolong the suffering of patients by denying them effective access to cannabis medicines. It's just a complete scumbag movie to do in order just to what? Protect your war on drugs. Saddos, like, talk about people being addicted to drugs. What about people being addicted to the war on drugs, you know, addicted to power, addicted to discriminating against people, you know? That's the real form of addiction that's out there. You know, you've judges who refuse to engage in any form of debate on these issues, you know. They're seeing day in, day out people before them, you know. Like if I was working a job and I seen something in my job that was making me ineffective in my job, and I didn't believe it was a job that was worth doing, let's say, it wasn't bringing in enough money, let's say, for the business, I'd put my hand up and I'd go to my boss and say, hey, I just want to make a recommendation there to try to improve this there to make us more efficient and to make you more money. Well, our judge's job is to make our society safer. And he should be going to his bosses, which is the government, and saying, hey, guys, I notice here I'm criminalising a lot of young people, a lot of non-violent drug offenders. And a lot of the times they're very nice people. And I don't really like doing it. And I think it's an ineffective way of protecting our society. If a judge actually went forward and said that, he'd be doing a great service to our country. But no, they don't. They're just doubling down on this. And you've the likes of Sean O'Donovan out there who hasn't come up in any of the articles today. But I'm going to bring you up anyway, Sean, because you know, you're a clown. You're just out there just locking people up for crimes that where nobody's been hurt. And you're given very short sentences then for crimes where people actually have been victimized. You know, that there was a young fella that got a 2 year suspended sentence there recently off Sean O'Donovan, and he was speeding and driving on the wrong side of the road, and he caused an oncoming car to swerve out of the way and to hit a tree, and he killed the driver of it, a 55-year-old Polish Jehoshaphat witness, like, and he got a 2 year suspended sentence. Now, there might have been circumstances in that case that warranted that sentence, but, you know, it's somebody got killed in that, and the judge acknowledged that there was carelessness going on. There was speeding, and, you know, he lost control of the car. Um, I just don't see how you can lock a person up for 4 years for having cannabis in his possession and not lock a person up for killing a person when they're speeding. What kind of a message are you sending out there around our laws? So in the final piece of news, guys, it's going to bring us back to an old story, which is that of John Gilligan. So another John here today, but this one is John Gilligan, not a guy you want to be buying your cannabis from, that's for sure. But John Gilligan is making the news today because there was a couple of articles that were released there during the week that tried to link John Gilligan and the Kinehan gangs to some of the cannabis clubs in Spain. And I was talking with my buddy Graham about it the other night, and he pointed out something that it's worth re-mentioning, is that the article seemed to want to demonise the cannabis clubs, in that, like, the cannabis clubs are all run by criminals. It's kind of how they were setting out it in the article anyway. So I just thought that was interesting, that Graham pointed that out to me, because I hadn't really noticed that at all. But he points out that the laundering of money is a much bigger crime than the selling of cannabis, especially in Spain anyway, where it's rather tolerated. But possession of cannabis, yeah, for personal use is not a criminal offence in Spain. But however, the legal grey areas that have allowed venues like cannabis clubs to operate have also allowed criminals, including Irish gangland figures, to use these clubs as a way to launder money. They also use the clubs as a cover in order to grow plants, which are then vacuum packed and shipped to Ireland, the UK, and elsewhere in Europe using the postal system. So that's something I've been talking about for a while, as well as the fact that the postman is probably the biggest drug courier in Ireland. Like, what are the implications there of that? If like, imagine the guards pulled over the postman and searched his van and he found a big bag of weed in the back of it or something. Like, is the postman done for that? Like, is he? Like, if I set up a private courier business and I start doing the courier jobs, am I supposed to check the contents of all the packages? There was a man with a van there who got a couple of a 2 year sentence, I believe it was. I could be wrong on that. But he he was basically a man with a van who advertised himself in that kind of a way, and he got hired to deliver packages. Now, whether he knew what was in them or not, I don't know. But this man had kids, and he got locked up for it. Wonder what would happen to a postman. um, but one man who is suspected of helping launder his money is an Irishman with a business links to at least three of these cannabis clubs. Money was being pumped into the legitimate operations and then taken out at a reduced rate to make it look like purchases of cannabis had been made at the clubs, according to sources familiar with the investigation. Senior detectives in Spain have long believed that the mafia-type gangs have been using the cannabis clubs as fronts. Well, do you know what they've been really using? Prohibition. Do you know? Like, there's nothing more that these criminals love to use is prohibition. They love prohibition. They hate my messaging. They hate the fact that I'm calling for prohibition to be ended, because if prohibition ends, so does the gravy train for the boys, for the John Gilligans out there, because now cannabis, as I said, it will become cheaper, much cheaper. Um, so these criminals will go bye-bye. They'll focus on other areas where they can make money, but they won't focus on drugs. They'll fuck off from at least cannabis anyway, if we were to put some proper regulations around that. Um, so according to Ramon Chacron, deputy chief of the Catalonia's crime squad, criminals have been exploiting legal grey areas like this for their own gain. He told the Observer newspaper earlier this year that Spain's cannabis clubs are being abused by criminals on a regular basis. And guys, why aren't they mentioning pubs? Why aren't they mentioning pubs? For years, like that was the thing, the criminals heading off to the Costa del Sol, and they're going to open up an Irish bar. Like that was the thing. Like, where was your articles there about that? Oh, criminals opening up pubs over there, and no, they don't do this. At least I'm not aware of it anyway. If they did, um, but it seems like there's an active effort here to try to demonize these cannabis clubs. But one thing they don't mention is the fact that the government have failed to regulate these clubs. So these clubs operate in what is a grey area. So the government are at fault, really, that the gangs are able to exploit these cannabis clubs. So again, over this side actually. That's a little bravo there for the government and the prohibitionists out there, because you're doing a great job. You're serving these criminals very well. You're basically giving them like a gift of on a silver platter of a big industry, a massive multi-billion euro industry, by keeping prohibition going. And guys, that is all for today. I hope you'd enjoyed today's 420 news. I know, as always, I enjoyed delivering it to you. So until next time, I'm going to pop quickly over there to the comments and see what's happening out there in the Facebook world. So guys, at the top we have Emmett Friel. He says, "Yup, Martin, what's happening out there, Emmett?" And Andrea says, "Hey, Martin and everyone, how's it going, Andrea? Nice one for popping in. Hope you enjoyed today's show." And Dave then says, "Poor John." And yeah, I agree with you, Dave. Poor John. Guys, if you're not already friends with John, give him a friend request there. I'm sure he won't mind. And also follow the Cannabis Legalization Party Ireland page. That's operated by John too. I'm sure he could do with all the lovely supportive messages there to let him know that the community is thinking of him, because he done us a good service there the last time, sharing his story and just getting it out there to people about just everything that went on. He went in and represented himself in court. He didn't go in with a solicitor at all. He spoke up for himself, and he done it very well. And I hope he can do that again. I hope this doesn't hurt or damage his health in any way, in terms of the stress that he must be feeling. And Mick says here that the live viewer numbers are going up every week. That's good to hear. I actually can't even see what the live viewer numbers are right now. I see it afterwards, I think, but I can't see it right now. It just says live. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to see the comments, guys. That lets me know that you're there anyway. So yeah, it's always good to see the comments. And I'd be heartbroken if I ever end the show and be like, I'm going to go read the comments, and then I go, oh shit, where's the comments? There's no comments. There was no one watching. That would be a heartbreaker. And John says, blazing up for Oz. And Dave says hi to Teresa as well. So it's Teresa out there as well. What's going on, Teresa? I don't see you out there. But Dave says hi to you anyway. And 4 out of 3.5. Haha. That's coming in from Onshore Fudge. Sorry, there are replies coming into other people there now as well, so I'm trying to just read out the comments that are to me. um, Scally O'Callaghan says, I'll have to watch my favourite news later, working now. I'm delighted to hear, like, there's a good couple of people who said that this is their favourite news show, and I'm delighted to hear that it's after becoming that. It was just something that just kind of came into existence, really. This used to be just me kind of coming across a news article and then just hitting the live button and just ranting about that news article. I just said, do you know what? 420 News, make it a bit more structured. Find a couple of news articles. Don't just have random videos at any time of the day. I said, 420 News, make it regular, consistency. So, and here we are, a couple of months later, and we'll keep it going for as long as we need to anyway, at least until cannabis is legalized, and then sure we'll see what happens then afterwards. um, Christian Jas says we should be allowed to grow as much as we need. Exactly, that's my opinion too. As much as we need, and I need to share it with my friends. If I was growing strawberries, lettuce, cabbage, any of that stuff, I would be hoping I can grow enough to share it with my friends, because there's nothing better than being able. Like I gave my friends potatoes I grew before, and there's nothing better than hearing like back from them. Oh, I cooked those potatoes earlier, and they were lovely. Made lovely buttery mash or something with them, or it's great to get that feedback. The same with strawberries. I've given strawberries to people. I've given my chicken eggs to people. That's the one I really get the most feedback from. So I look forward to a day when we can just grow cannabis and share it freely with each other, because it's not worth that much anymore, because it's not a prohibited substance anymore. John adds in here then that a lad in Perth, it's 120 for 7 grams, but a pack of fags is $50. That's gas. Yeah, and that's what I say too. I don't know how people can actually afford to smoke cigarettes or tobacco with their cannabis, because the price of tobacco is ridiculous. But it's even more ridiculous by the sounds of it in Australia. $50. How do people manage it all? And what's happening out there, Greenbird? I hope you're doing good, bud. And shout out to the High and Homegrown podcast crew there as well, lads. Check out their podcast every Sunday night on YouTube. The lads have a good bit of crack. They have a great show. It's a lot less serious, much more fun than my show. I tried to have a bit of crack, but it sometimes can be a bit too serious. So check out the boys. They do a good fun show every Sunday night on YouTube. Monsieur Fudge, he says, they got me again. Ah, no. No, he's talking about John there, I'd imagine, maybe. I don't know. Stephen Garland, and as I see Stephen there as well, I just reminder to everybody that Vera Toomey and I can't remember the other woman's name, sorry, but it might be there in the comments. No, I don't see it. Stephen Garland and Stop My PPMS, guys, that's this evening at 7:30. They're the talks that are done by the UCD and the SSDP from UCD College. So check that out. It's over on stopmyppms.com, and you'll find a link up there to be able to register for the event. And if anybody's having issues getting registered for the event or getting a link, just pop me a message, and I'll forward you on the link there as well if that's easier for you. And Stephen says here, the Super Bowl advertising is so expensive. That is pretty amazing. Someone has very deep pockets. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It is going to be super expensive. Whoever paid for that, like, they're looking to probably make money out of it. But as I was saying, I really do hope it was a group of NGOs out there that maybe pooled their funds together just to get the message of education out there to people that cannabis is a medicine. And Percy says there that Greenbird says that very true, Martin, very true, but isn't he a handsome little fella? That's about the dog, I'd imagine. Of course, he's not on about me anyway. But yeah, man, the dogs are like they're so lovely, like, and it's a heartbreaker that he'd get you 10 years, like, if he smelled what was in your pocket. Heartbreaker, like, kill you with cuteness. The dog should be sniffing biscuits, not bombs. Gardas should sniff out landmines, getting on smokers to hide your drugs. That's coming in there from Paul. Yeah, that's true. The Gardas, the dogs should be sniffing biscuits and not bombs. Gardas should sniff out landmines. Yeah. And just thinking of the poor rats that they were using. There was a rat there got an award in I don't know, it was in Israel or somewhere like that. They were using rats to sniff out landmines. They should do that here in Ireland too. Get all the rats in Ireland and sniff out the bloody landmines over in Israel. And I know about the two-legged rats as well. um, Onshore Fudge says 12,000 in the UK, and I can't remember what that's in regards to. But anyhow, I've had Flynn in the back of my truck. He's not that in tune. I've had an ounce in the cab. That's coming in from Greenbeard, who is a truck driver, and yeah, that's interesting. You've had the pleasure of meeting Flynn, but luckily he didn't indicate against you. And as I said, that was probably down to the handlers. You know, you probably didn't trigger any suspicions there from his handlers. So therefore, Flynn was like, "Oh yeah, my handler thinks this guy is cool. I'm just going to run around here, pretend like I'm doing something, not indicate anything, despite the smell of cannabis coming out of the cab." And Paul says here that greedy Garda don't care about murder. They're just to murder and protect him. What's the job? Just making up rubbish like Bailey got fixed up. And he's on about the Ian Bailey case there as well. And Greenbeard adds in here that, fuck's sake, Martin, we all know CBD is not a narcotic. We also know if you smoke a joint containing THC, you're not going to see a pig elephant flying in the sky. And yeah, you're right. I'd imagine that auto-corrected there to pink elephant flying in the sky. You probably meant to say, but a pig elephant, yeah, that does as well. But yeah, man, there's just pure lies and propaganda out there by the prohibitionists, and it's sad that it's just been continued today up at the level of the UN by not kind of going ahead with all of the recommendations. Do you know, the World Health Organization, and crying out loud, like these are the guys leading the way in the pandemic, and now all of a sudden when it comes to cannabis, their opinion doesn't matter anymore. It just makes no sense. And Greenbeard adds in here that we need to end the stigma and put the stop to the misinformation that is spread over the mainstream media. And that's true. Like the only way we can combat it is by this, our own media. You know, shows like your own, shows like this, and other social media avenues out there too. And not only that, but hopefully just get out there into the public as well soon. As soon as the restrictions are reduced anyway, like I'd love to be able to set up a table in the city centre and just start talking to people about cannabis again. You know, just try to normalize it and remove the taboo and the stigma that exists there around cannabis. Paul adds in here that hemp THC content is like the soya in our bread. In France, they chopped bakers' heads off for mixing plaster in the flour. I didn't know that. It's a joke. Why and how they can put this the two together is ridiculous, and that comes in from Nicola there. And yeah, agree with you. It is completely ridiculous. Um, Nicola adds on there as well that maybe if they tried a couple, they'll soon see there's no problem at all with a plant. A plant's something where you can grow. It's not mixed with other drugs. It makes me sick. It's a harmless substance, and I'm sure one day soon they'll see they've been wrong. Yeah, now I think that they see that they're wrong, but they just don't want to admit it. I'd say there's a lot of politicians out there who just don't want to admit it. Stephen Donnelly, for one, he's a guy who just does not want to engage at all in a conversation about cannabis because he knows he just wouldn't be able to hide behind the lies and the propaganda out there, you know. So maybe it's the criminals that give Leo the brown envelopes. Yeah, you know, there you go. It very well is because they're making a lot of money. They can certainly afford it anyway. And good job, man, and great show, Martin, as always, coming up in Greenbeard. And Andrea says, thanks for the show, Martin, have a great evening. Thanks very much for watching too, Andrea. It's a pleasure to be able to bring it to you. Stephen says, great job, man, big show, a lot of news, mixed feelings about much of it. Teresa then says, hi, busy doing dinner. So I hope you're listening while doing dinner. I love to listen to podcasts and stuff just while doing things around the house. Washing the dishes is probably one of my favourite places to be listening to podcasts. And yeah, Stephen adds a link there as well, guys, in the comments for tonight's show with Vera, and I'll click into it there now just to get the other woman's name because I would like to announce it. So the other person joining is Deborah Downey, and she is the mother of a 16-year-old child with a Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. And she has a ministerial license for medical cannabis, and Abigail is doing so well. And that was the video there actually of Abigail that I shared yesterday on the page. If you've seen it at all, check it out. Abigail is dancing around with Santa Claus, a robotic Santa Claus, but she's up and dancing around thanks to cannabis medicine. So check it out and give it a share if you wouldn't mind. And Teresa O'Connell says, my neighbour does it every year, 2 batches of veg in the summer. Yeah, it's amazing. It's great that people were able to grow in their garden. I hope that we can see more of it into the future. My great uncle lives across the road there, and he was telling me of just memories of old when they used to have chickens and vegetables and all sorts of stuff just going on in the garden. Like they really provided for the home out of the garden. They didn't just grow grass in the garden. So yeah, I think we've forgotten a lot of good habits we used to have before, but we can relearn them again. And the final comment then for today, guys, is coming in from Paul. He says a lot of people being treated for cancer get killed by the morphine. THC is a milder treatment on the liver and kidneys. That's another reason to legalise it for everyone. And you're dead right. Yeah, a lot of people are actually killed by the morphine. They go into respiratory failure and they just slowly pass away. It can be a painless way, a painless passing for a person too, and with it. But at the same time, wouldn't it be great if you could offer them THC as an alternative, and maybe they might stick around longer. They might even beat cancer. Who knows? But that's it for today, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, to bring the 420 news to you guys. And yeah, and until next time, I'll be back with you on Friday. I should be back on Friday. I don't think I have anything else planned on Friday anyway, so I'll have more 420 news feed our Friday. So guys, until then, stay blazed and keep her lit. Peace.